So, Chris, episode 9, After Hours.
Yeah.
It's been somewhat more than a week since we recorded the episode.
It really has.
It's been, I want to say, about 4 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Well, certainly longer than we set out for it to be.
Absolutely so. Yes. And so, I mean, there are good reasons that the episode is late, as you know. A couple of trips, and one to New Zealand for several weeks for me.
Yeah, which was a big one, wasn't it? So you weren't just there and back.
No, absolutely. It was 3 weeks. Actually, it extended to 3.5 in the end because we missed the flight back. But that's a story for another time.
Yeah, and I've been out to Chicago as well. So there's been a lot of jet setting around. And as we barrel headlong to Christmas, it just starts getting busy anyway. Lots of rushing around and kind of craziness. But here we are. We've made it. We've managed to sit down in front of the mics and actually, have a chat about episode 9.
Yeah, I mean, before we do, so my trip to New Zealand wasn't entirely wasted because I did actually try a couple of no-low drinks when I was out there.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I took a few pictures of insides of supermarkets, which always looks a bit suspicious, I think, but I don't know what they think I'm doing exactly. So they've got a lot of kind of the usual suspects when it comes to beer brands. So obviously things like Heineken, Peroni, Guinness, fair enough. They literally are worldwide. I went to the opposite side, the antipode from the UK, and those brands were there, absolutely. But there were some local ones as well. So I tried kind of like a handful, and
nice.
They were okay. So one of my favourite breweries in the world is one called Garage Project. So, I mean, we both drink normal standard beers as well as no-low beers as well.
Yeah.
And Garage Project do some really good beers. And they do a couple of low-alcohol beers. And I tried one of them. It was an IPA. And it was called the Tiny Hazy IPA. And it was okay. I was a bit disappointed, I have to say, because I really love their standard stuff. And this was kind of like, it smelled okay and it tasted okay, but that was it. And we've reviewed beers like Brulo, Lust for Life, which is delicious, and it's
one of my favourites, really.
Yeah, it's a lot better, and even stuff that we haven't yet mentioned on the podcast as well. There's one, St Austell Brewery.
Yes,
they do proper job 0.5. Right. We need to review that on the show at some point because it is very nice. Spoiler alert, it is very, very good. And again, it's better. It's better than what I had over there. And so I had that one. I had another beer as well called Emerson's Little Bird alcohol-free IPA. So again, another IPA. It smelled absolutely fantastic. It was really hoppy, just really citrusy, just smelled amazing. Tasted of nothing. It was awful.
Okay,
let me
just ask you a question to kind of unpick this a little bit, because I've never been to New Zealand and I don't know, does it feel like there's a good no-low scene, or does it feel like they're really just starting out? I mean, I wonder I suppose the reason I'm asking is, are these beers emulating other beers that are popular? We saw this with the Bud Zero, that it's kind of emulating Bud Light, which we don't think is a good beer to start with. So even if they do a bang up job of getting that right, it's not going to be what we like. Is that what's going on in New Zealand, or do you just think they're not nailing it? They're not, or those particular ones just did a poor job? I don't know. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, I don't know. So both of these beers were from established standard breweries. So I'm not aware of kind of something like a Lucky Saint equivalent where all of their beers are no-low, or low alcohol in the case of Lucky Saint. Yeah. So there are some really good breweries out there, definitely. As I say, Garage Project, which are out of Wellington, are top 3 breweries in the world for me. I love their stuff. But yeah, maybe they're just not, maybe they're not investing to the same degree as some of the breweries over here in their lower alcohol stuff. I'm really not sure. As I say, in terms of lager, you're spoilt for choice with all the sort of the international brands, which, as we know, are perfectly nice. Yeah. So a couple of slightly disappointing beers. over there. I mean, I think it's fair to say that obviously these were IPAs that I tried rather than lagers, and IPAs, they're not quite executed as well as lagers are. So I do wonder if it's just the differing beer styles that's the thing. But I mean, it was a great trip, and obviously, as I say, not wasted because I did a little bit of research.
I mean, if a 3.5-week trip to New Zealand was spoiled entirely by a couple of bad Nolos, man, they really were bad. So I'm not surprised you say it was a great trip. Of course it was.
Yes,
you're in the land of hobbits and orcs and all of that stuff. So amazing.
Indeed.
Well, I'm glad you had a nice trip, really. But yeah, gone quite a long time, and it's thrown our whole recording schedule out the window entirely. Yes. Which, of course, as I say, I haven't helped matters either with heading off to Chicago. Now, I can report from Chicago that they also have a few Nolos. I went in a couple of bars, not that many actually, and they did have some Nolos on the bottle. I didn't see any on tap. But you know what? I didn't actually have any for two reasons. I saw a lot of the usual suspects like you did.
Yeah, sure.
The big international brands. That's to be expected because we're in the US I was in the US, and some of these big usual suspects are, US brands. But the other reason was I was hardly out at all, and I was out there for work, and it was quite a tough job. And I just fancied a standard beer. So, hands in the air. I didn't want a Nolo. I wanted an alcoholic one. So that's what I went for. Actually, speaking of travelling, lots of people have been travelling lately. So I think I mentioned in one of the previous episodes that my mum's just been in Australia seeing my brother who's out there. Now, when my brother came to visit in March, he brought over a couple of beers for us to try. And I know I've passed those on to you, and we've got that earmarked for an Aussie special, but we only had two each, rather, I should say. Now, my mum coming back, she's actually brought back a couple of extra ones as well.
Oh, very good. Very nice.
So we now have the full complement for when we do get round to doing an Aussie special. Maybe the first of many, because I might be heading back there myself in Easter. We don't know. But
cool.
That's something to look forward to.
So another gap in the schedule in Easter as well, maybe.
Very possibly. But we might do a slightly better job of planning ahead of time to get some episodes in the bank.
Indeed. I think it's probably time we ought to talk about the episode 9.
I think that's fair. Actually, there was one thing I wanted to bring up. Now, I trailed this at the end of the last episode because I initially had this kind of incredible smug mode I was ready to initiate. Because you schooled me so much on pronunciation of, was it riband? Ribboned. Yes. I know, right? This has been a whole thing. I've had it out with my mum. We've fallen out. No, we haven't.
Is that why she went to Australia?
Yeah.
Just to get away for 3 weeks.
Just to run away. I mean, it was monumental. It was a big argument. No, not at all. But I did say it to her. And actually, her response was, well, isn't it lovely that you just accept everything I say?
Oh, that's very nice.
Not anymore.
Looking on the bright side of things. Very nice.
Isn't it? Anyway, I was all ready to come back and school you because we had our cider brand from Aldi, which is älska, or because it's got a little 2 dots above the A.
Yes.
Älska. That's the pronunciation, we think.
Yes, I think. As close as we're ever going to get to the Swedish pronunciation. Yes,
I think that's fair without putting on awful mock Scandinavian accents.
Yeah, the Swedish chef or something, hurdy-gurdy and all that.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
But in the episode, you call it an umlaut. And I was like, aha, well, that's what the Germans call those 2 dots. But we have a name for it in English. It's actually called a diaresis. And I didn't jump in at the time but I squirreled it away. I was like, I'm going to bring this up in the after hours.
Good fodder for a complaint.
I'm going to school him back and teach him a lesson. Anyway, I thought I better just do a little bit of research just to make sure I'm right. And it turns out I'm not right. There is a pronunciation, a punctuation mark in English called a diaresis, which is 2 dots.
Yes.
But it's slightly different. And I genuinely didn't know this till I looked it up, so I'm glad I did. Now, a diaresis would be used in the word like naive, Naive, but over the I, instead of there being a single dot, there's 2 dots.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And what it is, the diaeresis indicates that there's 2 different vowels that are happening. Naive, yes, without there being a consonant. So that's what a diaeresis does. Whereas an umlaut, as you said, and as the Germans use it, modifies the original vowel. It's effectively adding an E into it.
That's right, yes. That's what it is in German, yeah.
That's right. So schon would become schön, for example.
Schön.
Schön. Or Muller would become Muller because there's an E that you've added in. Now, interestingly, I was then mentioning this to some friends of mine who are Austrian friends who had come over to visit. And one of them, Doris, so it was Werner and Doris and their kids came over. And Doris can actually write a kind of older version of Austrian. Now, I need to look up what the name of this is because I can't remember off the top of my head. And in that older way of writing, those 2 dots can be represented as a kind of squiggle, which is the E, almost like it's caught halfway up when it's migrating to become 2 dots.
Oh, I see.
So that is clearly where it's come from. It's an E that's migrated up and now just gets represented with 2 dots. Anyway, none of that's really important because that's in German, but we do use it in English. We do generally call it an umlaut, and we do generally use it in the way that you described it. So I've schooled myself and found myself very wanting. Why have I brought this up? I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Okay, now there was something else from the episode that I thought we should get into because we were talking about alcohol levels that we find in food.
Yeah, that's right.
But you mentioned in the episode that there was a part of that little discussion that you didn't want to get into at that point, but you did want to save for the after hours. And you know what? Here we are. We're in the after hours.
Yeah, so because it is to do with alcohol in food, but the main point of the episode was the naturally occurring alcohols.
Yeah.
They're sort of the hidden stuff. And what I really wanted to talk about now was when you add alcohol to food, how much of it burns off when it gets cooked? Because...
You mean when we purposefully add it, like flambeing or something?
Yeah, flambeing, or if you're adding wine to, a bourguignon or something like that, or a pasta sauce. When someone's adding, in the recipe, they're adding alcohol to it. Because it's relevant, I think, to people who listen to the podcast, because if they are avoiding alcohol, do they need to be worried by the fact that alcohol is in there? Because does it actually get burnt off or not? And the answer is yes, but maybe not as much as you think. And it absolutely depends on the cooking time, like massively.
Okay.
So basically, there's this American study from 2007, or was most recently done in 2007. Now, it's snappily titled the USDA Table of Nutrient Retention Factors, Release 6, in brackets 2007.
I mean, that's your bedside reading right there, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And so basically, as part of this, so periodically, again, the last time happened 18 years ago, they test the alcohol retention of food after it's been kind of cooked in different ways. So you mentioned flambeing. So I was really surprised by this. So if you flambe something, 75% of the alcohol remains in the dish.
Really?
Yes, I thought it'd be a lot lower than that. I thought maybe half would burn off, or 3/4. No, it's 1/4 of the alcohol burns off.
You know what? I assumed it was pretty much all of it. You'd have maybe trace amounts left, but pretty much all would go.
No, it's literally whatever you put in. That could, because you have to put something like brandy in. It has to be strong alcohol in order for the thing to actually flame. So I suppose if you think about it, so wine doesn't flame, or port doesn't. So I suppose that when the flames die down, there must be a decent amount of alcohol left in there, because you can't set fire to things like wine.
You're right. Is it that there's a certain amount of alcohol in there, which is why you add it for flambe, when that burns off but hasn't entirely gone, well, it doesn't carry on burning. It just stops. The reaction stops.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's why, as I say, you know, they've literally tested this, and it's only a quarter of the alcohol actually burns off. So actually, I was reading earlier about Bacardi used to do a particularly strong rum. I think it was called something like Bacardi 151 because it was US proof 151, which is kind of double the ABV. So it was like 75% ABV. And they stopped doing it a few years ago. And basically they were getting sued by people who were using it to flambe, but it was massively more flammable than standard rum.
So a fire risk.
Yeah, absolutely a fire risk. You know, almost twice the amount of alcohol in there. And so massively more flammable. And so they were a little bit tight-lipped about why they discontinued it about a decade or 15 years ago, but basically it's strongly kind of inferred by people in the industry that they just didn't want to get sued essentially.
I mean, with good reason, I'd guess. Yeah, it's one of those unintended consequences, isn't it? That people, I don't know, I guess I cook with alcohol, but I'm not that aware of it being a massive fire risk as I do it, even though I'm aware that I'm going to burn it off. That still feels like quite a safe thing to do. But of course, if it was twice as flammable, twice as much alcohol in there, and suddenly there's a fireball in my face, you've got a different proposition. You do.
And particularly, you know, I don't know about you, I've never flambéed at home personally. I've obviously seen it in restaurants, and maybe I've seen it in someone's house, but I don't think I've ever actually done it.
I definitely have. I've flambéed. But not that much, and not as ostentatiously as you'd see in a restaurant. You know, if a recipe requires brandy, well, there's a distinct flavour to the brandy that it's going to add into the food. Yeah. But you do want to get rid of some of the alcohol, and it will evaporate off in some way, but it'll take longer. And often you add it right at the end, quickly burn it off to get the worst of it. And I suppose now I'm saying that, the worst of it, it makes sense that it's not all of it. But
well, yes, absolutely. And talking about sort of boiling it and actually taking it off as well. So as I say, you know, so let's say you're flambeing it, that's a quarter of it gone. What they also did was they tested both simmering and baking as well, in terms of, so you're adding alcohol to a sauce, let's say, and then you're simmering it for a certain amount of time or baking it for a certain amount of time. And they group those things together, so maybe it's exactly the same. But basically, after a quarter of an hour of simmering or baking, there is still 40% of the alcohol remaining.
Really?
Yes, and that's a quarter of an hour of simmering. There's still,
I'm amazed.
Still 40% still remaining. So, you know, 60% is gone, but 40% remaining. And then after an hour, there's still 25% of the alcohol remaining. So it does go down. And so you get down to kind of like 2.5 hours, and then you're at kind of like 5% of the original amount of alcohol. So, you know, it is mostly gone at that point. But that's 2.5 hours. So if you're doing, I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I use alcohol in a recipe, I tend to kind of cook it for quite a while anyway, at least half an hour, probably more like 45 minutes to an hour. So I would...
It depends what I'm using, actually. So red wine in a bolognese, I would cook a little bit longer, but still not for an hour. I won't have a bolognese cooking for an hour. It doesn't need it. That's clearly going to have...
That depends on how much alcohol you want remaining in there.
Well, I guess that's the question. But white wine, if I'm cooking white wine into, say, with onions and peppers and prawns or something like that, I will cook it quite briefly to, again, get the worst of the alcohol away. It won't burn off in quite the same way like flambeing would, with the spirit. Yeah, it's interesting. I would cook different amounts of time, depending if it's white wine or red wine, and certainly if it's spirits.
Yeah, sure. I think there's more alcohol remaining in your dishes than you think, though. One thing that it doesn't say is kind of how vigorous the boil is. It said simmering and it said baking. Yes. It didn't say kind of like a rolling boil for 20 minutes. I mean... You would assume that would burn off, or burn off's the wrong word because that's more like flambé, that it would evaporate more of the alcohol. But who knows? Unfortunately, this study doesn't tell us that.
I would guess that it does, because it certainly reduces the water out of a dish faster if it's really raging away compared to
it's a fair point.
Simmering away. Look at us being all foodie, eh? I like it.
So yeah, in terms of how does this affect kind of recipes, and how does this affect the amount of alcohol that's in there?
Yeah, I
mean, most dishes don't have that much alcohol in there to begin with. So we're going back to what we said in the episode, in the full episode itself, that it's the dose is the poison. So, if you're only using a glass of wine for 4 or 5 servings, and you've got rid of, let's say, 2/3 of the alcohol from that wine, the actual amount of alcohol that people are consuming is very low.
It's spread very thin, isn't it?
It's spread very thin. And so I think, again, it comes down to if you have medical reasons to avoid alcohol, or obviously ethical or religious ones, you probably don't want to use alcohol in there. But for most people, it's not going to really kind of affect them. The levels of alcohol that are in there, it's probably more than you think there's going to be, but it's still a very low level. The alcohol doesn't get burned off or evaporated off to the extent that you might think. So I thought I would go onto the BBC Good Food website again and just find the most alcoholic recipe that I could and try and figure out how much alcohol remains. And so I thought, well, beef bourguignon. Yeah, there's a whole bottle of wine in there for 4 people. Yeah. For 4 people. And so basically that's 175 ml of wine per serving. But it gets cooked for about 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yes.
So, in principle, if we look at the table from the USDA study, there should only be 5% of the alcohol remaining in that dish compared to when it started.
Interesting. Okay.
So that, if I've done my sums correctly, means that it's 0.7% ABV. So if you're having that 175 ml of wine, but it's only 0.7% ABV.
Wow. Okay.
So again, for most people, I don't think they'll actually feel that at all. They won't feel the effects of that. It's less than drinking a can of Lucky Saint or another low alcohol beer.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. In terms of the food, where we add the alcohol, more is retained than you think, but again, quantity matters.
Yes, fascinating. Now, there was something else we wanted to bring up, which we touched on in the episode, which was to do with CBD.
Yeah, sure.
Now, we've tried 2 CBD drinks now, and the very first time we tried it, neither of us particularly paid attention to whether we felt any effects from the CBD. This time, we made a little bit more of an effort to feel how we felt afterwards. Well, let me ask you the question, Pete. Did you feel anything after we had our Trip Lemon Basil?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh.
I don't think so. It's kind of tricky because I think things like this, where you're kind of examining yourself for a change of state of mind, it's kind of like Schrodinger's cat, in the fact you're observing it kind of changes its state. The fact that you're thinking about how you're feeling or how you're thinking, I think actually can change your perception of how you're thinking. You
know what, Pete? I've got a wild theory here. I think it did affect you. I think it's affected you like, I don't know, mushrooms or acid or something. Absolutely. And you're still on it. You're having some deep philosophical funk about the
4
nature
weeks
of
later.
It. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I think you're right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't feel any different at all, to be honest.
I mean, I definitely noted that I felt quite alert. And I slept quite well that night, which I often don't do. But I did wake up in the night. Okay. But then I was thinking back about that as an experience. and remembering that actually we'd had Coke with the spiced rum, which has a lot of sugar and caffeine in. And even though I didn't have that much, I never drink Coke. That's why I bought such a tiny can.
Yeah.
So was it that had affected me, that had, perked me up that afternoon? And then because I'd had a very active afternoon, feeling really alert, that I'd gone to sleep quite well, but then it was still in my system, and that's what woke me up in the night? I don't know. So the jury's out. Maybe I felt something, maybe I didn't, but there's too many other factors to say one way or the other.
I think that's kind of a problem with all these psychotropic kind of drinks, all these functional drinks, is that it's really difficult to kind of separate the effects of the drinks from just living your life during the day, as it were.
Sure, other stimuli.
Other stimuli, absolutely. And as you say, you had the Coca-Cola with the spice rum, and
important distinction there.
Absolutely. And you're very sensitive to caffeine.
Yes, so, and I have trouble sleeping anyway, so
Yeah.
Is a thing.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly, kind of CBD is something that we're going to be looking at in terms of a deep dive. I'm naturally skeptical about these kind of things, but I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a, well, I need these things to be proved to me, to be believed. If you're going to make these kind of claims, extraordinary claims about the efficacy of whatever it is, whether it's CBD or whatever, show me the proof, or show me the studies, or even kind of like just people's perception of it. And I mean, this may well be CBD. I mean, may well affect different people very, very differently.
Sure.
So maybe it doesn't affect me at all. Maybe it affects other people, quite in a more major way.
Sensitivities to it, or almost, I don't know what the word is, immunities to it.
Yeah. Or tolerance.
But it's interesting how you framed that, because you said about making these extraordinary claims. I'm interested actually in the way that these companies circle that thought, but never quite definitively make any amazing claims. They're very loose with it.
They're using a lot of innuendo, essentially, so they're never actually kind of getting to the point. I think the problem is that they've got to walk this tightrope whereby they obviously want to imply that it has some kind of actual effects because the customers believe it does, and they want the customers to believe that it does. However, if it actually had any major effects, maybe it would be regulated as a medicine. And certainly, if it were to be classed as a medicine, it would need a lot more testing than it currently has done. Because from what I can gather through my very brief kind of research, there hasn't been any sort of definitive studies. I mean, studies are very, very definitive by themselves, but there aren't really any studies about how it affects people who aren't ill with specific things, essentially.
Sure.
So there are a few studies where I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were people ill with particular conditions, and CBD helped them in this sort of very narrow sense. And so, and in much bigger doses than you will get in a can of CBD drink off the shelf. So,
it's fascinating, really. I think there is a lot there, and I think it's absolutely something we need to return to, not just for our own curiosity, but clearly there's an industry that's in some way addressing it, pandering to it, aiming towards it, trying to cash in on it, all of those things. But also, there might be some medical evidence to back it up. Dosage might be a question. There's just a lot to unpack. So absolutely, we've got to return to it. Yeah, absolutely. So, Pete, there's just one last thing I wanted to ask you. I have managed to get some to you, Crodino Spritz. Yes. Just wondering if you've had a chance to taste it yet, if you agree with me, don't agree with me, that it was good. Where are you at with it? Well, I've certainly had the chance to drink it. I just haven't taken up that chance so far. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, what I
thought I would do is, as you know, we are recording our Christmas special in a couple of days.
Yes, we are. Yes.
And we've got the kind of the Aldi, not exactly equivalent, but similar drink in the same kind of category, haven't we? What do you say the difference was between Crodino, which is kind of orangey, and was it Lidl or Aldi? I can't even remember.
It's from Lidl. It's Cedrata.
Okay.
Which falls into the same category in as much as I think it's going to be a shortish, bitter-ish drink.
Yes.
I haven't tasted it yet. It's clearly being packaged as something of a kind of copycat brand to...
It looks very similar. As a lot of Aldi and Lidl brands do.
That's right.
They almost kind of specialise in kind of not knockoff versions, but if you were being uncharitable, I suppose you could call them that. So, yeah, it looks very, very similar. So, because I know...
But there are differences because it's not an orange drink. It has lemon in it, but it has cedar as being one of the main flavour ingredients as well.
Yeah, okay.
I just think it kind of falls into the same sort of category of drink. If you're going to reach for a Crodino, you might reach for a Cedrata as well.
Well, particularly considering I imagine it's about a third of the price.
Yes, I think it probably is.
Yes.
So, okay, so you're holding off. You're holding off till our Christmas special.
So what I thought I'd do is either during the Christmas special or maybe just immediately before or something, I'll just try the Crodino. And then I've got a bit of recent context to kind of judge the Lidl or Aldi
I think that's a great idea.
Equivalent. Yes. So, no, I've not tried it yet. But thank you for giving me the bottle anyway.
Well, look, I don't want to give too many spoilers away about the Christmas special. Of course, we're going to be celebrating Christmas early and we're going to be walking through Christmas Day in a no-lo kind of way. All those moments throughout Christmas Day where you might ordinarily be tempted to have an alcoholic drink. We're going to see if there's a no-lo version and which ones stand up best from the ones we've reviewed in the past, but also got a couple of extra nice new things. Well, hopefully nice new things to try in a tasting directly for that episode as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And we're doing it in 2 days. So it's coming up quick.
Yeah, 2 days. So I've got to be, I'm going to be quite busy editing this. And then do some research for the Christmas special as well. Not that it needs much research. We've done it all. We know how Christmas goes. I don't need to look up the Wikipedia page for Christmas. Interesting. Okay, what's going on here then?
What's that then?
What date is it again?
I think that on that front we can fly. We'll be okay. Okay. That's everything I've got for After Hours. Anything more from you?
No, I think that's it. So, let's leave it there. Cheers. Well, I'll see you in 2 days' time.
I'll see you for the Christmas special. See you then.
Cheers.